Dad over there, call my dad. Full. Don't worry.
How much?
They brought the bike, or not bike, they brought the little disc over there, added the salt, brought it there. My other.
It actually grew that far.
Yeah, same facility. It grew back over and he finished up. They, oh, why would you do that? My other grandpa cut his thumb off. And they, he wore band-aids.
More respect, new respect.
He would wear band-aids, the dive, down in the scars, and it was just.
Oh, really?
My other was next to the stroke, the back, like, okay, like a stroke, yeah.
Oh,
Okay, I'll say. City, Federates Council meeting to order for Monday, February 24th at 5:30. Roll call please.
Scott. Here. Grams. Here. Darrell.
Here.
Beckman. Here. Mattson.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Up next is the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything to discuss regarding that? Any questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to accept the consent agenda as is. We have a motion from Councilor Jarvella. Is there anybody that would like to second to support that?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilor Grams. All those in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to the guest and citizens forum. Is there anybody that wants to say anything? Hearing nothing, moving on. The interim city administrator, Manning. Interim, yeah.
The only thing I have is that the DDA firm is looking to schedule interviews with members of staff and council. I did tell them that Mondays typically work best, and gave the general layout. He was gonna come down or up today. It looks like it will be next week, but when I have that information for sure, I will email out to staff and council to schedule those interviews.
How many do they have
How many what?
interviews?
They're interviewing you to see what you want in a city administrator.
Oh.
Is that, all the counselors and then like department heads or what?
Yep, so I will set up interviews with each member of the council individually and then department heads, direct reports of the city administrator, so Betsy, Tammy, Nell, Jake, everyone for that way, so. And then other than that, I just had Jake's comments for tonight. He was absent, so he said the new chemical tanks have arrived at the water plant. And they are working on plumbing the tank for use. Pending the city's approval and resolution of intent, on March 10th, he will join the East Range Water Board at the legislative meeting in regards to funding new facility and the WIF cap. Other members of the council are welcome to join them. If you are planning on joining at the Capitol, please let me know so I can post meetings as appropriate. And other than that, I don't have anything. Thank you.
March 10th, you said?
Yep, that's the day of the month.
All right, moving on, Public Works Director Fetzinger.
Agenda items tonight, other than letting you know, last week we had our third water main break of the year up on Guilford. Things went fairly routine, the process getting significantly deep, so we did hire a contractor to do the jackhammering while we did the digging. It just kind of speeds up the process, and that worked out very well. It's something we haven't done typically that way before, and I think we'll continue to do so when we get into studying. Other than that, agenda items.
How deep was the crossing?
A little over 6 feet. There anyway, and now that one had ran, we let that one run for about 36 hours before we started digging. So the water generally does chew away at the frost a little bit, so it could be deeper than that in other places.
Compared to previous years, is 3 kind of?
Yeah, that's below average. Yeah, we've had, since I've been here, we've had as many as 15 And the fewest we've ever had is 3, so. I don't expect this to be the last one. I hope.
All right, well,
Do
thank
we
you.
know how much it costs, like, to have the subcontractors come in and do that? Is it
Well-
a huge expense extra?
Yeah, we have had, we have contracted them out this time of year. Generally speaking, I like to dig them early on in the year when the frost isn't too deep. We only have one backhoe, so to jackhammer and dig at the same time, we have to run back and forth to the shop and swap out the hammer and the bucket. So by the time you do that several times versus having someone dig at the same time while you're jackhammering, it just goes a lot faster. We have hired contractors to dig the main break entirely, because the other part of the equation is we also have to get backfill material to fill the hole. And this time of year, our dirt piles are frozen solid as well, so that ties our machine and operator up just jackhammering into the pile of dirt to get dirt to put back in the hole. So, I mean, as long as I've been here, we used to hire, Genghis Excavating from Halo. They used to store their equipment right in our shop and they would dig them again this time of year. Genghis is retired now, we've been utilizing here. This time, like I say, we were able to get into our dirt pile the day before because we were aware of the break. So I had my guys do that. The day of the dig, we asked them to only bring one machine. They used their hammer while we dug, and again, I went through with that.
Do we know how much it costs though?
No, I haven't seen the bill for this one yet. I've seen bills for main breaks go anywhere from $3,000 to probably $8,000, depending on how long it takes them and how much of it you have to farm out. But yeah, this one, we, hired one machine with operator for roughly 8 hours, so I wouldn't expect the bill to be too significant.
And we're all budgeted for that added expense, do you know?
Yeah,
You.
so yeah, we do what we can to save money where we can, and we try and dig as many as we can, but, like I say, when it gets to the point where if we have 8 feet of frost and we're running back and forth swapping out hammer and bucket, we might do that for 2 or 3 days. I've been on main breaks that have lasted 4 or 5 days before. I mean, then you have to start wondering if the amount of overtime you're paying out for all your guys for that many days offsets what you could have just spent for an extra machine to come in or whatever.
Curiosity question, are we on par with the number of breaks we get with other surrounding communities?
We generally get more than they do. I nearby surrounding communities, some communities get a lot more than we do. Ones with, very old infrastructure or the rocky conditions we have. City of Tower, I think, has about the same number that we do. But I think we're a little bit larger, have more, miles of pipe than City of Tower, so.
Oh, yeah.
But like Aurora and Wauk don't get quite as many as we do. I think Aurora's had one this year, we've had 3. Generally, we probably have twice as many per year as Aurora. Yeah, and I've never been able to pinpoint why some years are worse than others. I mean, we could have a extremely bad winter of tons of 40 below. Believe it or not, you don't get as many as the year that. I don't know why. But, we have had years where the frost has gotten below the pipe deep, like 9 or 10 feet deep. And that was the year we had 15. So. Yeah, no real rhyme or reason that I could tell you.
All right, well, yeah, thanks for taking care of that, we all really appreciate it. Moving on, MS Director Olmsted.
I basically just got agenda items. However, last Thursday, all the fire extinguishers within the city were maintenance, so we're good for another year there.
Thank you, City Attorney Lukey.
I don't have any idea.
Thank you. All right, moving on to reports from elected officials. The Rams.
Just like from the Chamber of Commerce, at our meeting next week, we'll be discussing the Easter parade that we've been continuing to do, so we'll get a letter sent out to the city and the EMS and fire and police and everyone about participating in the Easter parade and driving the bunny around. And leading the parade again, so we'll get that letter sent out after our meeting next week. So
Thank you, Counselor Gerblin.
But the only thing I have is that several of us took part in the tour with Jake, was Sherry and I went over there to see the new water plant. Got a tour of the foundation and tank area, and then they took us out to see the caisson being driven out to the lake. It's pretty interesting.
And that's kind of. Kind of playgrounds and old, dollar, $10 back there.
It's in back of the Family Dollar at the city garage site.
Oh,
When you pull in, city garage is on your right, the building will be just west of that. And
yeah,
it's-
that other building with construction there, that's the new West Industrial Park Business
Oh,
District that IRRR.
the one back farther west in the corner,
yeah,
that's their new step building.
good, glad that went well, Counselor Ekman.
I went to the library board meeting, they hired Michelle Lanning to replace Sue. And then it sounds like they're gonna hire another library clerk. And that's about it.
Did they just put out like to get applications for that, or have they heard anything on anybody applying for that, or?
When I was just in the library, there were people picking up applications, so.
Perfect. Matt's in here. For me, tentatively Minnesota City's training went this past weekend. Learned lots of good information, got to meet a couple of counselors from Virginia and Ely. Yeah, everything went well there. Yeah, that's what it for me. We'll start with old business, 10.1, number XX and XX regarding prohibited animals in backyard chickens.
The planning commission met and indicated that they didn't foresee any instance in which they would be in support of backyard chickens in the city. And so I added this to the agenda to see if the council would like to no longer proceed with this, or if they would like to move forward in some way.
Does anybody on the council have anything to add?
I
Questions?
do actually, because I think we've got the commission in that case, we have them there for that reason. They're the ones that do their research and findings. And my recommendation would be that we go with their recommendation, just because of the potential for problems, and their feeling tonight that I was here at the meeting with them, that they're adamant that they don't recommend along chickens in town.
No, the cost of eggs right now.
Oh, yeah, I get that. I get that.
Now you guys are paying as much as I paid for them with it. I'm chickens.
Yeah, I guess I don't see a way forward on our end without the planning commission being on board with that. Not saying that this is a forever decision. I don't know if a group of citizens would like to form a group to coordinate with the planning commission at some point in the future, they're free to do that. See what some sort of workarounds and agreements they could come up to, but I guess, yeah, just on our end, I don't know how we approve this without some sort of signing off by the planning commission, since they deal with kind of the planning and zoning of land and how it's used and things like that, so.
With that in mind, then I make the recommendation that we follow their recommendation and not have chickens in town this time.
You don't need to make a motion, we can just take this as informational, and I'll put the ordinances in the not approved file. And so you'll have them for future reference, but
Okay.
they'll just keep those existing in place, yep. Okay.
Yeah, obviously, the group of citizens gets together and kind of coordinates with the planning commission, obviously. Treat each other with kindness and respect, with things, but. Yeah, I mean, that's one workaround I thought of, that people were really adamant of, chairman, they should get together and come up with a group to find ways that they could get the planning commission on board with that. So I guess that would be. Anything else before we move on with things? All right, moving on to 10.2 ordinance number, the text regarding zoning chapter 159.090.
This is an ordinance to update the zoning regarding the trailer court. It has been discussed and approved by the zoning commission, and their recommendation is for the council to approve. And so if the council wanted to move forward with this, I could just take it by consensus and get it posted as required for 10 days prior to the next meeting.
Yeah, the highlighted areas I see are just things we've talked about before, that we don't own property, therefore. So we're gonna maintain parts of the streets. And I like the addition of the requirement for how old the trailers can be.
The question I would have on that then, and just kind of playing devil's advocate there, is that, so nothing is allowed in under 15 or over 15 years old. What, it doesn't specify what happens at the point in time somebody has a trailer that ages past that 15-year mark.
Then they get a notice of non-compliance and they're required to comply with it.
So they're gonna have to
They would have to remove the trailer.
remove the trailer.
Yes.
Even if it's in great condition and then.
So that's the piece I had questions.
And that's what we talked about that quite a bit at the planning commission, is how, because, so if you put in there is no older than 2010, well then 2010 continues to get farther and farther away. You know what I mean, like if you don't update the ordinance.
Yes.
So they wanted more of a rolling expectation, and this is kind of the compromise that they came up with on that. That's just kind of the decision they made.
Won't the phrasing be no more than 15 years old, or says no less than 15? I guess it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess in my initial thought, I picture when that guy brings it, you know, the previous owners would bring in these really, really old trailers that you could tell were just dilapidated and before they were even occupied. I mean, I don't know if there should be a discussion about occupied trailers that still meet all these requirements, that they're sanitary, they're structurally sound. But yeah, if they're occupied and in good shape, do we still require them to buy a new one? And is that if they're renting, that's the landlord's responsibility to provide them the new one, right? It wouldn't be their responsibility to buy one. They rent these trailers out there.
Yeah,
That's now, they're all
yeah.
rentals. So it'd be on the landlord to provide them.
Well, and so if you consider the sanitary expectations, who's going to go inspect that? You know, whereas if you have a date in there.
We had a trailer for our cat for a while, and it was like 60 years old, but that thing was in great condition still, I mean, they maintained it and.
Because yeah, I understand the easiness of being able to see how old something is, but then again. Something can be super old, but you put in the time and effort to make sure it's taken care of.
I mean, every house in town is basically the same age. Yet there's some that are in rough shape because people didn't maintain them.
Yeah, just asking all the questions, but just like, let's say, is there a clause where you could put, you know, unless. Like you talk about inspecting them, who's gonna inspect them, but there be some clause that say unless an inspection is performed on the trailer and it meets all these requirements, but then who does that inspection? Do we have anyone? New, so it's not a planning commission, it's not a, is it a blight? Issue that needs to be inspected? Would that be a blight officer?
I would not recommend that any of our employees go into people's homes, so. Is there something else you want in that study?
Can I ask? Because I'm on the zoning commission. I thought it was, when we were doing this, it was more on what was brought in. As far as the 15-year, is that, I'm just wondering how it's stated there.
We had discussed that it was
Right.
15 years old in the requirements, in addition to being sanitary.
Right, but, the ones that were there that were occupied. I thought we had stated, you know, they would be, we could have something, like, I'll use the word blight against it or something. But, we weren't gonna say they had to get a new one. I thought we were working with something that was being brought in, had to be under that state. This is,
Well, and we had discussed as part of that the trailers there currently don't meet the current ordinance, so it would be enforcement across the board then.
One of the problems you get with mobile homes is that whether it's a mobile home or they typically call them manufactured homes now. Or, they're built under a different code than your hometown is supposed to be. And it's not as stringent and not as tight as that. So they tend to, for lack of a better term, self-destruct. It doesn't take a lot of time for them to be ignored, and you end up with a condition that some of the other ones out there have been. So I fully understand the 15-year age, because they can get pretty rough looking. Especially the older ones are 1.5-inch studs. I've been in mobile homes and I work with the county that if you move furniture away from the wall, middle of winter time, you see frosting inside the wall.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm on the zoning board for the planning thing. And I thought when we discussed this, the 15-year thing was, well, we discussed it getting rid of the unoccupied. But anything that was brought in had to be 15 years, you know, newer than 15 years. But I didn't think we had any discussion on some of them that were occupied where they'd have to replace theirs. I'm just wondering how this is being stated from what our discussions were.
Right, and so this is the same ordinance you got in your last meeting packet. It's the exact same one. And so this is the one that I brought to the planning commission on several occasions
Right.
and asked for any opinions or thoughts on. And so this is what the discussion from the planning commission had outlined, is that trailers were expected to be 15 years old or newer.
Was that the current ordinance?
No,
No.
that's a change.
Did they have any language in the current?
No.
Not as far as age, no, we're just talked about, being sanitary and structurally
What
sound.
about unoccupied?
Unoccupied needed to be removed within 90 days, and there's basically none of the ordinance is currently being enforced.
I think that's why, yeah, like when we read it, said,
Well, again.
none of this is enforced, let's update this, or.
Can we discuss then to be enforced that somebody had to make an official complaint? Is that correct?
And it could be, we could enforce under blight without an official complaint, yes.
Okay, because I know we had talked about people coming in and stuff, we're doing a form so that we'd have some action where the new owner would be. What is it, says something or whatever, so we could have some action that can be taken. Cause I drove up there, there's about 20 of them that are pretty bad, you know, yeah, we gotta get them out of there, so, yeah.
But no one's gonna inspect them to see if they're sanitary or structurally sound, like how.
Well, the ones that are unoccupied, you can see they're not structurally sound.
Yeah, so if someone came in and said, I'd like make a blight complaint to the trailer court, there's these, and we fill out the form, he'd be cited for blight, saying you're in violation of this ordinance. As far as,
Right,
you know, sanitary, and then he would have X amount of days to 90 days to remove those, and if not, he gets a blight ticket.
Yep. And they continue to accumulate daily, and then if he does not pay, they get added on to property taxes.
so somebody, but we do have to have people come in and make a complaint, correct?
Blight does not need a complaint.
Not like,
enforce.
but, okay, okay.
But if your only rule was the unoccupied, then could they put a tenant in and say, oh, now it's occupied and
Yeah.
you don't have a leg to stand on?
Yep, and
Whereas
that's.
the 15-year-old or an age thing solves that problem, because otherwise they'll just keep playing musical chairs and moving people.
Right, I know we have discussed it, I just wanted to hear how it came out.
No, I'm wondering too.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
So does this go like the chicken ordinance and we don't need a motion or anything?
If you would like it to get posted, I will make that change to the language no more than 15 years old. If everyone's okay with that, I will post it as required and you can approve it and we can get it codified for the next meeting. But I would just need like a general consensus that everyone's okay with the language as is.
I guess, yeah, the 15-year-old piece of that, I guess, yeah, I don't really agree with that, but others might disagree. Unless, yeah, if they can come up with some other idea or just taking that piece out.
Then what do you stop at? If you take that 15-year-old wording on. I mean, because there's a lot of mobile homes out there in town that are in the 60s. I know where there's 50s mobile homes. That I used to have to look at before. And even the ones from the 80s, they're about 40 years old. Not being built like a house. They tend to be in rough condition.
They don't last
No, they don't.
nearly as long.
And like I said,
Like some people are very meticulous. My
Yes.
mother-in-law is very meticulous and like our shack was. Or our cabin was very well maintained and they even moved the whole trailer and it's still standing.
Well, that
But
might,
like 15 years it doesn't seem like that long.
and that might be true in general, that if you maintain something, but if you drive through the trailer park, that's not the case out there. He has not maintained, he's not a meticulous kind of guy. The ones that are out there are not taken care of, so that kind of gives you insight as to what's gonna keep happening if you don't enforce something with a timeline. If you just say unoccupied, then Kenny said, someone's just gonna move into it, then you can't get rid of it. And our point of this whole thing was to clean up the trailer court and make it be somewhere people might wanna live, maybe it's a community again, I lived there when I was 2. Back in the 70s, that was our home, it was a nice place, it really was, there was a park, there was families, we played out there, it was safe. That's not the case anymore, so I mean, I think we need to
and there are.
do something about it.
There are cities and range that allow mobile homes to be moved into lots in town. Even in Aurora, that you can drive through some of these towns
Yeah,
and you can see those mobile homes from the 70s and see how they are deteriorating. And what it does to the looks in the neighborhood.
so that's where, the point is to try to make it a nice livable neighborhood
Yes.
again, and a place where people wanna be, not where we try to hide. People, or hide the houses that look shabby, let's try to make it a nice area again, and.
Well, that's like, well, it says sanitary conditions structurally sound, that's, I just don't see the age for it.
Who's going to judge that? Who are we going to send out to do an inspection of the home?
Is there a year on them where someone can go and say, yep, that one's from 1994, so that's in good shape?
Some of them have the data tags on, but still.
Yeah, they should have the manufacturer, you know, they
Who's
should,
gonna enforce the 15 years, like, go out there and say, oh, well, that one's. If no one's even gonna go out there and see if they're structurally
I think
sound.
you would have to give us a list of here's the mobile homes I have out here, here's their model, you know, make and model, you know, and tell us, here's what we have, and then you could say. This one, this one, this one, I mean, all the unoccupied ones have to go.
If nothing else, the light officer can take a drive through, take photos and bring them in. Say, okay, yeah,
And it's a lot easier to send a letter, administrative letter saying, you know, there's this trailer located at this location, please verify the age of it versus. Are you gonna hire an inspector to go into each property and verify, and is that inspector going to do materials testing in there, you know, like.
Well, cause you can have a trailer, but that's under 15 years, that's not structurally sound, that's not sanitary, but those can stay because they're.
No,
less
not
than
if they're
15
not,
years.
not if they're not structurally.
But who's going to
sound.
inspect them?
From the outside, wouldn't it be a blight, someone would report it? Just like homes in town, if it's reported, you have to go look at it, so if someone reports one, regardless of the year, someone files a report, then. We'd send the administrative letter saying, please verify. You know, the year and
But you don't have a whole
It's on-
floor on the inside?
Well, if it's from the outside, then that's what the black light would be about, yeah.
I think at the very least, I'd like to look at what other cities have done in regards to. If they have specific language in there stating, 15, 10, 25, whatever the unit be.
But I wanna see pictures of that mobile home park then too, because if Grand Rapids had an ordinance that said no here, but it was, looked worse than ours, we don't wanna follow their ordinance, you know, if their trailer park looks the same as ours, I don't wanna copy them. So I wanna see photos of their parks too.
And Sherry, there's parks in the county that are all in rural townships. There's one township in particular has got 3 mobile home parks that I know. And they've still got trailers in them parked in the 60s and 70s. And they're in worse shape than what we've got in the town.
Yeah, if they
That's-
were that old and looked great and people lived in them,
It'd
and I
be
don't
different.
complain, it'd be a different story, so yeah, I mean, it'd be.
You know, like I said, they're built, I dealt with people that had, over a period of time, literally gutted the entire mobile home. Stud by stud, replaced them all with 2x4s or 2x6s, and put gable roofs on, and then came to us and saying it's no longer a mobile home. Well, you're sitting on a frame, and that's the big difference.
That's the
It's
design.
still a mobile home. It's upgraded in quality, appearance, and everything, effective era, but it's still a mobile home.
And at our park, they're all rentals, which could change, but right now they're all rentals, so I would hope if they had holes in the floor or walls kicking in or frosty, they're gonna report that to the landlord.
None of them are owned by anybody other than the owner of the park.
Correct, yeah. They're all rentals.
Okay.
I'm just saying that something can be 5 years old and be trash, like, that's why it's still.
And I would hope people renting it wouldn't, you know, I hope they would make a complaint to the landlord. If it is trashed inside and it's unlivable, they should be reporting that to the landlord for him to fix, and then if he's in violation of that, that's a whole nother issue.
Well, I know people that have had broken windows in there and the landlord doesn't fix them or holes in the floor.
And then that's a whole nother legality that you fall into, that he's not keeping them up. Yeah, to code, so there is recourse for that kind of stuff.
So if they're rentals, I would say we're probably better off keeping them 15-year-old. Because by the time you get to 20 years old, some of them get to be pretty rough.
Yeah, it's not like we're displacing, you know, someone's family home that they lived in for 60 years, these are rentals, these are. I mean, if you're only gonna give them a better rental, if they have to move out and move into something nicer, it's going to be an upgrade for them, you know, they're not. Displacing them with nowhere to go, you're providing them a newer home to live in.
When they're occupied as a rental, does the mobile home park owner pay the utilities for the whole park or for the individual lots, or how does that work?
They pay the number of lots that are occupied, that times the residential bill. So they pay, you know, the bill's 180, they report how many occupied trailers and they take, you know, 10 times 180, they pay $18.
Okay, so
They're not metered.
I was just wondering if the renters came in and had the utilities set up in their name.
Renters are not allowed to have utilities in their name, it's required to be in the landlord's name, the property owners. So then that goes for every rent.
In this park, do they allow people to bring their own?
Yeah,
part I
we
don't
have to
remember.
the landlord, and I have no idea.
There
Okay.
had been in the past, there was a couple years ago,
There used to be, I know that, but yeah.
I don't recall when the last one.
Any other discussions or questions regarding this?
One in favor of it as it reads.
With the rewording of no more than 15 years old?
Yes, sorry, yeah, with that one, correct.
Would you like to make that a motion or?
Yeah, make the motion to adopt the revised or post is required to post.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Counselor Grams, second by Counselor Darvilla. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Names from Counselor Beckman and Mayor Scott. Motion did not pass.
So now,
Motion fails, no other action taken unless I get information as to how you'd like to change it.
So, yeah, Counselor Beckman has any ideas, I'll also provide some suggestions on.
I'd like to go back to the planning and zoning, yep, those ideas will go back to the planning commission to determine.
I would just rather determine by the condition rather than many.
I just feel like on one hand, we follow the recommendation of the planning commission on one ordinance, and then the next one, we don't follow their recommendation, so I guess. It's kind of torn, but. Yeah, if we follow the recommendation or go against the recommendation.
Yeah, I guess when with the recommendation as written, it would be, they would have to be older than 15 years.
Well, no, more than 15 years
That's
old,
right.
was the intent.
So I mean, yeah, right, so I mean, written as.
I think they went with that because it is a rental situation. I think if we had, brought up, if they owned it, it could have been different. But this way it gives us a recourse to correct the situation out there, so you have to come up with something. And without hiring somebody or something, this is a way to at least control it. So,
Yeah, I'm sure somebody that can come go and inspect them all.
Right,
Because
that's-
they can get 2 years old and have a big hole or.
but then like she said, that's
Yeah.
when the owner should be coming forward. Right now,
But they don't.
yeah, well, a lot of times it's because of this. And maybe you get better, or I hate to say that, other type of, people renting and stuff, if you do correct some of the situation.
the thing too that should be considered is that if they're older than 15 years, it's not like we're picking grandma
Right,
out in the street. These homes are owned by the park owner. It's a for-profit operation, and we are theoretically trying to prevent blight of some nature in the city. And at what point do we change what, I don't know where our two neighbors here, well, what they're going to ask the commission to go back and do. That they want to change to 20 or 25 years. But as I said, it's a for-profit operation, and I would think that we would rather see nicer trailers if they're rentals. Again, it's not like we're throwing grandma on the street and telling her she has to buy a trailer.
But what if grandma maintained her trailer and has it nice and?
And those are few and far between.
Yes, but I don't wanna kick grandma out because
Well, it's the park owner's trailer, not an individual.
I would rather just. I worry about the condition of some of them that aren't even that old. And they're destroyed.
That can happen.
That's what I'm saying, is I just don't like the age stipulation on it, because. People have built brand new houses and they've destroyed them.
Those are privately owned, not rental, that's where my catch.
and that's.
But even apartments, like I've lived in apartments that are trashed, and they're not that old. I lived in the cities in an apartment and it had carpenter ants so bad, and it was a newer place. So it's like. I don't know.
Well, it is, Jill, is a start to get the owner to correct some of the
And
situation.
that's what.
And you have to come up with something, and without having inspections and all this going on. It was easier to say, we felt that within a certain time, at least we could correct. I mean, right now, it's out of control. And so you have to come up with something, and I think the 15 years got to be our best resource. Otherwise, there's not a lot of resources without other things.
If you don't have teeth in an ordinance.
Right, yeah.
It's worthless.
I hope we can come up with something, that we can agree to that makes them take better care of it, because my intent was to make it a community where people feel proud of their homes and maintain them in a sense of, pride in them, and that is not the case.
out there, so if we can make them, some way find an agreeable solution to make them better, that would be.
And with the new owner, we had a chance to start
Yes.
getting our teeth into it. You know,
Before more come in and.
Yes.
Do
right,
we know like the average age of the trailers that are out there?
probably about 40 years.
I think that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like 15 years, just.
What kind of rental fees does he charge?
I have no
I
idea.
have very, but when this is all new, so he might have a whole, you know, he just took over not too long ago, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, I don't know anyone who lives out there to even ask anymore, but I haven't seen them advertised, so yeah, I'm not sure
Nothing
what they charge.
Not with the new guy, but I've seen before where it's like rent to own for $1,000,
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
At the very least, we'll give, Counselor Ekman and I, a chance to provide some input if we keep with the 15 years and we keep with the 15 years. Kind of with the chicken ordinance, we kind of went back and forth with the planning commission, just providing ideas back and forth. They are the experts, so just, I think it gives Counselor Ekman and I just a little bit of time to look into things. And then maybe we can get maybe some sort of, explanation from the planning commission, just specifically why they came up with the 15 years and if it is solid, then, you know, well, just, it's hard not being there, but yeah, thank you for having those discussions.
When will this be brought back for the council?
Probably post planning commission meeting, or the third. Tuesday, third meeting, or?
It's on a Tuesday,
Third
so it would be. Not next meeting, but the meeting after. If they have a meeting, they traditionally only have meetings if they have business.
All right, we have to new business.
We'll have something to say.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I'm just slow on this, I'm trying to process. The proposed ordinance set over from the planning has 4 requirements. The first is that it conforms to Minnesota statute 327 or any other Minnesota statutes pertaining to mobile. 2, that it be structurally sound. 3, that it be sanitary. And then 4, that it be no less than 15 years old.
Yeah, we meant more, this was I know more.
You meant,
Typo,
so, or that.
They can't.
it can't be older than,
But it was stated that none of, or that
right,
is the intention, then, I mean, is it even reasonable to say that all of the mobile homes would have to be no more than 15 years old? If they're structurally sound, sanitary, and meet Minnesota statute?
Right. So that's where Counselor Ekman.
That's, so I guess my question then would be. It,
sanitary and safe are not easy for us to enforce. 15 years is.
I would argue none of it, if you don't have anyone to do the inspection and enforcement. And if you have something, then they have promulgated rules and regulations of what meets those criteria, and they can enforce those, the same way they could, how old is the unit? So, it seems like it's really a question of, do we have someone, or do we wanna have someone that's going to do the enforcement and inspection of whatever the standard is, not what exactly is the standard. I just don't know if we want that 15 years on their own. If it's entirely up to you, what you wanna do with that.
But the understanding from the planning commission is that. For us to send a letter saying we need you to verify this unit is. Younger, newer than 15 years old. Is easier than us hiring an inspector to inspect properties.
So that's, and again, that's not what they're asking, they're saying they're no less than 15 years. So, the other way around, it's gotta be 15 years or newer, you got. Units that are gonna be expiring and not be in compliance with it just because of the passage of time.
Right.
So
That's the
Correct.
intention.
That was the intention, yes.
that word less than.
Yeah, it's supposed to be more than.
it might not be the intention to have the mobile home be in better condition currently. Like, once the mobile home is up to date and newer, maybe we would change it again someday, but if you see the mobile home part, you might understand why we want. a
Good point.
in there.
It's rough. It's
Yeah.
rough.
It's bad.
Like, so maybe in 10 years, we change it again because they are upgraded and in nice condition, and we say, look, we don't really need that 15-year on there, they're keeping them up to date, they're keeping them livable. Maybe then revisit the ordinance, but
I just wanted to point out that it does say it has to meet the statute, which has, you know, guidelines of what that needs to be under the mobile home code. And then the sanitary structural aspects, so, but, okay.
So you're saying though, we might need someone to actually enforce this, you can write it down, but who's going to enforce it, is what the question.
That's what it seems, that's what
Needs to be more.
I'm hearing, is that we don't have anything to say.
Well, so we also currently have ordinances, I mean, who enforces our ordinance is current? I mean, we have a lot of ordinances, and right now, nobody's enforcing any.
What do you mean?
I mean,
One
people hauling snow across the road, chicken coops in people's backyards that are currently there and we don't allow them. They're not being enforced right now.
I think.
Are they being reported and not enforced, or it's
Well,
just
but I mean,
here, you know, like people just know they're there and nothing be done about it, but
that's what I'm saying, and even if somebody did report it, then would be the person to go and inspect to see whether or not.
Those would all fall under the police
Police
authority of
department.
the city and would be enforceable by the police.
I think what we were hoping is to put, where the owner was gonna, money was gonna hurt him if he didn't do something. We're just trying to get a little grit for the owner. It was gonna hurt him a little bit. If we have any, official, letter and stuff going to him and he's gonna be assessed so much. If he doesn't do it, we're hoping if he gets too much, he's gonna say it's worth taking care of. If you don't have anything, how are we gonna be able to take care of it? Because like we said, it's hard to bring somebody out there to say, gotta take it down. Hopefully the money it's costing him will make him correct some of the things. I warned that it was that kind of more the intent.
My advice to council would be that any, adopted ordinance, not be arbitrary or capricious, directed towards a particular individual. But that it be an enforceable paradigm for anyone that's gonna fall under this ordinance.
Yeah, it's enforceable to all trailers in the city. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, we hope it happen to only have one, so we say key, the landlord, but.
Right.
It would be for any mobile home park, but we happen to just have the one, so it's, might seem as though we're narrowing it to him, but it is a, yeah, if we had another.
Yeah,
mobile
I
home park,
might be
it'd
stating
for them.
that wrong, but that's exactly.
All right, moving on to new business, 11.1 Bolton Main proposal regarding leftover storm sewer repairs.
Go ahead, I can jump in at any time.
Well, thank you everybody for having me here today. So in front of you is a proposal that was requested of Bolton and Maine to provide preliminary and engineering services for the design of Westover Street. So as you were aware, this last June 18th, there was damage done to Westover. Kenny reached out along with Jake and Becky to talk with us about providing engineering designs to improve the 40-inch culvert that's below Westover as a project that will be conducted in conjunction with the CASA 110 along in the County Road 665, which is happening later this year. The thought was that if the work is done in conjunction with those projects, there will be a large economy of scale that can be provided to the city of Fort Lakes, which would reduce the cost of the project in Westover. Furthermore, there is basically is the city of Fort Lakes is working with FEMA currently to see if they can get some of those costs returned through a grant opportunity. This area was designated a disaster relief zone. And there was pre-discussion with FEMA, and so there would be a pursuit to see if we can get upwards of 60% of those funds covered. Specifically pertaining to the storm sewer, along with just doing the road repavements that would happen with it. So our proposal provides an engineering fee of $105,400. What that entails is that we do surveying services, we would do geotechnical analysis of the Westover Street, and then we would design water main, sanitary sewer, and then the timeline that we would look to take on is roughly from February to June. While this does not concur with the bidding process through the county, it would still come out. The project would be bid while that project was open, and still offer the contractor who's doing the county work once they're selected to provide a really good bid to White Lakes. So that is a potential for cost savings. As I mentioned before, we would do the preliminary engineering, the engineering design, and also bid administration. That's the last piece I forgot to mention, so.
Do you have anything else to add, any?
Well, just he touched on the storm of, June 18th this past summer is what, destroyed 90 feet of Westover collapsed right by the liquor store, just north of the liquor store. So underneath Westover is a 48-inch pipe that's original to town, 1954. It's galvanized pipe. Right now, they've sent a camera through where they could get it through, and it looks like Swiss cheese, for lack of a better word. It's just rotted out and collapsing. There's constantly dirt caving in, and when we had that significant of a storm, a section that failed. That outfall is the one for this lower part of town. Off the top of my head, it serves the 200 block of Andover going that way, all the way to Dorchester, Arlington, Westover, some of the business district. So a lot of the watershed from this part of town flows out through that 48-inch pipe. You can imagine by it being 48-inch that it is a significant portion of our watershed. Goes into the ditch that's alongside the city garage road, out through Colby Ridge Development and then to Colby Lake.
Or just into my backyard.
Or
Stays
you-
there. That's me up on the boat.
That's nice of you to volunteer to take that.
Right, I got all the water.
Yeah.
Goes right into my
Yeah.
backyard.
So, I mean, June 18th, we found many weak links in town, areas that need improvement, areas that have been, for lack of a better word, need mitigation, which is one thing I'm talking to Jacob about. But anyway, that pipe is well beyond its life. The pipe is very deep, 14 to 16 feet in depth, which means in order for them to replace just that pipe, they'll have to slope the whole thing and we're gonna lose the entire road anyway. If we can get FEMA, if we can secure funding and hopefully get FEMA monies in order to just change that stored pipe, we're going to end up with a new water main, sanitary sewer main, and an entire new street. For those of you who were here, summer of '99, that road was reconstructed once before. And they added storm drainage, but they didn't replace the 48-inch pipe. Which baffles me, but it was not changed. They added to how much water that pipe handles, and now it has failed, so. As Jacob stated, hoping that FEMA comes through either way. That road, I don't know that we have a choice, but we did a temporary repair in July. Where the pipe is so collapsed, I do have pictures on my phone for anybody who would like to see them. The pipe is so collapsed, it's no longer round, it's more. Just like a dome, if you will, the bottom of it's gone and it's sinking. And we were only able to stick a 2-foot diameter pipe in a 4-foot diameter pipe for those 90 feet. And plug it up and get it flowing again. So I mean, it is by no means a permanent repair, it's the only thing we were able to do at the time. When you have a pipe that's like Swiss cheese, and you go, say we were to try to change 90 feet of 48-inch pipe, there's nothing to secure it to. I could chase it all the way to Kennedy Drive and past Kensington without any good pipe to connect to. So that's what we did as a temporary repair. We backfilled, we put pavement on it for traffic to pass. We didn't bother putting curb and gutter in those spots because it's a temporary repair, and we got the ball rolling on FEMA and, securing. I mean, it is something that's going to take an engineer, I'm sure, to plan a road project of this significance.
What does it connect to at 665 right now?
It goes underneath 665 and it comes out just north of the body shop. The ditch starts right there and it has a big concrete outfall. That outfall has been replaced, I would say 15 years ago, but the pipe, I believe, all the way through the body shop's parking lot under 665 and all the way to Kennedy is still the original.
And probably in the same condition.
Yeah.
Is that due to be replaced when the county does?
Correct.
Okay.
So the county, when they come through and do the 665 project, they're going to change all of our utilities underground. The water main, sewer, sanitary sewer and storm sewer. From my understanding, the county picks up the tab for the sanitary. And we're working with them on securing financing for the.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the county doesn't do this city sewer or water, we pay for that, but
Yeah, they're picking up the storm sewer all along.
yeah, they pay for the storm sewer.
So, yeah, so we're fortunate because that whole stretch of Kennedy Drive from the Lucky Seven to the hotel. All the storm sewer that's there is getting picked up on the county's dime and change. And then all the storm sewer that is on the Kensington or 665 corridor, wherever there is, any is getting changed. Now, when they come through, if we did move forward with this project, they would probably change just the piece that's underneath Kensington or 665. But again, what are they going to fasten to?
Yeah.
And that's not gonna stop another failure anywhere along Weston.
And then like Ken mentioned too, is the risk is just the 24-inch diameter pipe that is currently downstream. Again, there's a large portion of the city that will report to that, and in springtime, you might see some complications.
Yeah,
Depending on time.
the town was engineered to have a 48-inch pipe, they're not a 24. It was my only option at the time because it still collapsed and. You know, we struggled to get a 24-inch pipe shoved into a 48-inch because of the condition.
Do we know when we're supposed to hear about the FEMA money at all, or we are working with them? As you've been
I'm
working,
just wondering
Yeah.
right now.
Becky and I and Jacob actually joined in on a Zoom or Teams call. Weeks ago, right, the last one we had. I don't know, I've never dealt with people before, I'm finding out in a hurry, nothing happens fast.
And it's a very slow process, unfortunately, and a lot of it is based on reimbursement. So it's
Yeah.
still do the work and then be reimbursed.
So, yeah, as far as, are we gonna wait for a check from FEMA before we proceed, I don't know if that's
you won't be
an
able
option.
to, no,
I think the project has to happen regardless, and then hope for.
You'll end up getting payment after the fact.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
And
doing.
if you ignore it now, it's just gonna make a further mess.
the plan is to secure bond money for Westover and 665 utilities all at the same time, as those are the projects you're gonna have going on. And then when you get that FEMA and state of Minnesota reimbursement, they will reimburse up to 100%. So the state covers what FEMA doesn't. And so then you'll pay back that bond early, that portion of that bond early, so you won't have those issues ongoing. But that will be what you are working on this spring, is working with David Jerome to get that bond money secured for those utility projects.
Trust me, this was never on my radar. If you would have asked me last year if I planned on doing anything with Westover, I would have said, no, that was redone in 99. Why wouldn't we? And then the morning of June 19th, when I woke up, there was 90 feet of road collapsed. Yeah.
So construction will begin July 2025, so like water carnival?
So that's definitely a conversation, it's obviously, we always like to work with the contractor to have blackout dates for construction of when you guys have activities or certain milestones. So I even talked with Eric Fulstrom from the county about many of your events that are gonna happen about 665 and 110, so. We would have measures in place to try to make sure as much as could be buttoned up before.
Westover's probably the busiest that weekend, or there.
Well, and
Well,
not
and
only
the
that,
events within our-
yeah, so if it's the same contractor as the county projects, then they'll be well aware that July is not a good month to have roads torn.
Push it back a week.
Right. So we did, Becky and I and Jake, Jake was there, we attended a meeting with the county to find out their kind of timeframe, what they're thinking now. And they are going to start with Kennedy, and go through town and fingers crossed, we'll wrap up Kennedy around water carnival, that's their goal. And then start on Kensington, before they may have been going simultaneously or in different phases, but from my understanding. They're going to, due to water carnival and the increased amount of traffic and several things. They are going to try and wrap up Kennedy, then start at the Lucky Seven and start again 665. Now, Westover, there's gonna be a lot of logistics do it as well with these two, because all three of those roads are gonna need to be each other's detour road. You know, so to try and get them all done at the same time, but. I mean, it's almost now is the time because we're digging up either side of it and replacing the pipe under the street. But yeah, it's gonna take a lot of work, and that's why I looked at, Jacob, it's true to plan that accordingly with the contractors to keep traffic moving and get the projects done.
Regarding the proposal. Sound like it, so I'll take a motion to accept the proposal from Whitman to complete the project.
I'll make that motion.
Also,
We have a motion from Rand, a second from. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.2, notice of retirement from recreation. Let's speak to that.
Yes, you received a notice of retirement from Wade West, the recreation director. His last day will be March 31st.
Been a long time coming. He said 28 years he's been with us, so it's gonna take away a lot of knowledge, but. I would still make the motion to let him go if that's what he wants to do. I'll second.
Motion from Councilor Graham, second from Councilor Ekman, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None carried.
is there a replacement in line for him?
No,
So yeah, that's coming up quick, so I don't think we need to. I'm gonna figure out what our game plan is for that. We have a special council meeting next.
for interviews, yes. So traditionally, you have the personnel committee and the department head supervising, so the city administrator would run the hiring process for this. Is that something you'd like to move forward with?
The hiring process for,
The recreation director?
yeah, I guess I'd like to have discussions on kind of what our thoughts are for filling that spot, but coming up soon, I guess I'd like to chat about it at the special council meeting.
So you would like to not follow the policy? You'd like to discuss it?
Well, from my understanding, there's different like internal processes that we could do, hiring externally.
That's all set forth in the contract language, that's not something you would change.
Like we posted,
Yeah,
So we-
you post it internally and externally, but I'm talking about the hiring process is usually conducted by the personnel committee and the city administrator for these positions is. Do you want to not follow the hiring process for that?
No, yeah, it's the policy we follow.
Okay.
Three, notification of the library board of trustees hiring decision for the position of library.
You still, Counselor Ekman will have an update.
Yeah, hold on, she emailed me. And I kind of gave a brief. Okay, this is a statement from Sue. Bowers, the library director. But Lakes Library Board of Trustees has hired Michelle Lammy as the new library director. She has been in the library for more than 13 years and has a BS degree in social studies. Her starting date will be April 1st, 2025. That's all I got from her.
So we'll provide with information from current library director Sue Sowers. Do we have to do anything with that?
I hope it's informational.
So thank you to them for that. Moving on to 11.4, US Director Olmsted requesting increased snow transport fee.
Yeah, our building company suggested we raise it to 250.45 to follow the, Medicaid laws.
Any questions or comments?
Now, when you say no transfer, is this when you go and your transfer is canceled, or is this just for something like lifting
Lift
assistance?
assist, yeah. If you do, evaluation, assessment obligation, and we refuse transport, we still charge. We don't transport fee.
You said your billing company recommended that you do.
It's for the same fee for residents as non-residents?
Most of our patients are Medicare, Medicaid patients, so we should take what as a little bit offer when we can.
Here we only charge 150, but Medicaid will pay up to
Right.
58.
Right, so you take,
Okay.
yes.
We don't get Yeah, so if they pay,
Right, let's take it.
I'd make a motion to do so.
You'll be posting the ordinance for update, because we've had post or update fees through ordinance, so the ordinance will be available for your next meeting. Pass.
Do that at the next meeting.
Have a motion in a second.
What's that?
You have a motion in a second.
Motion, a second motion from Councilor
Barbaros.
Jarvis, second from Councilor Beckman, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to the gas contract update from personnel section.
Actually, yeah, I wasn't, I decided to go against going with air gas again. We're gonna be going with OSC. They're cheaper, I've been having.
I didn't hear that last part, I was supposed to.
We're gonna go with OSC versus air gas.
Oh.
So you'll have a contract on the next.
They don't do contracts.
Month.
Yep. He said if we have a problem, we'll set up the table and discuss it, and I said, okay.
Where is OSC?
Virginia. They've been around for a while, but they just recently introduced medical gas. They didn't have medical gas when we originally switched from Praxair to air gas. Air gas has been charging me $79 a month for a rental hazmat fee. When I brought it up to them, they, said he was gonna remove that charge. And the last bill had $100 hazmat fee for a charge, so I'm kind of sick of that part around.
Praxair still out there, or?
Praxair, yes. Praxair is outrageously expensive.
Yeah, I just switched from Praxair to OSC as well. We
For
had,
like welding gas? you can-
correct, yeah, all our tanks at the city garage. We had been under a 5-year lease with Praxair, or what they're called Lindy now. But as soon as I was eligible in December, I had to switch to OSC and save that.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to go with, Director Olmsted.
Do not need to do a motion if there's no contract.
Oh, okay. So we will switch to OSC. All right, moving on to 11.6, draft planning ordinance.
So this draft ordinance was presented to the planning commission. It comes from the state of Minnesota, so this is the one they recommend for your floodplain ordinance. I wanted to get it in front of you to review. At this point, it's, if you have any thoughts, concerns, questions, go ahead and send them to me and I will put them all together and present them.
Do they have a map of the city of White Lakes, what they would consider floodplain in town?
I can look for one, I can't guarantee.
I mean,
that.
because we used to have one for the city of Cook. Well, their problems out there, but I mean, we're sitting here looking at, if we adopt this, we're now creating rules without knowing where in town and where not in town.
Yep.
The rules will be in existence. for.
Like I said, I will look for them.
Okay, thank you.
Now we have a deadline for 25th, correct?
Yep.
So yeah, sooner we can get this, adopted, the better. So I think this is informational, folks reach out to Becky if they want any changes and. And from my reading of it, all this blue stuff is going above and beyond, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. Like I said, it's just a standard ordinance that the state put together, they recommend we pass.
So reach out to her for that, so you can make sure we get that done for one time. Moving on to 11.7. I've been in contact with a representative from First Children's Finance, she wasn't able to make it tonight. For the question and answer session. Just, yeah, since they kind of helped me use work to increase access to childcare and things like that. I can provide her contact information, so people on the council can reach out to her if they have any questions, if we need answer. We can also look at rescheduling, if they have to choose, not able to make it. Moving on to 11.8, resolution 2025-006 regarding the Eastern Water Board.
He said 6, so I was like, well, no. So I spoke with Luke from Aurora last week about this resolution. They are basically looking for a commitment from White Lakes that you are moving forward with joining it in a more official way rather than just in Jake Barrett telling them that you're interested. And so this would not behold you to them in any capacity. You're not signing bonds, you're not doing any of that. You're just basically saying you're gonna work with the water board. You want to work towards becoming an active voting member and you want their assistance and support in securing financing. It also appoints Councillor Dave Jarville and Public Utilities Director Jake Barrett as ex officio members of the water. So they do not have voting rights, but they will be part of the discussion for the water board. And I think Mayor Scott indicated that he was willing to be alternate when you had those meetings. I think that's what I remember when we were talking about water board stuff. So that's not correct. I can change that after you look at so.
And I do see it says where, and again, this doesn't commit us to joining for sure, but it does say we pledge to work towards joining as an active voting member. So that's, yeah, one thing I know we talked about, we don't wanna purchase our water from that, we want to be a member of the board and have voting rights, so. Yeah, I think that's also our interest.
And the reason for this was, correct me, Jake, if I'm wrong, they're going down to this city on the hill. Is that the 6th or the 10th?
It's the 10th.
It is the 10th. And looking at funding, it's gonna take a while to get funding for this, but they were saying that this will benefit them with us if we are committed to it, because they'll look at it and say, okay, yes, this is a regional effort to obtain funding, and it's easier to do the regional funding than it is for a smaller group.
Is there anything you wanted to add about the water board or the plant project at all?
Sure, I can maybe say a couple things, kind of expanding what Joel had to say too is, because where the funding is, while there's still a small funding gap for the project currently, there's been changes in legislation that's gonna allow that gap to be further closed. And this resolution that White Lakes would be making empowers East Range Water Board to really go down to the Twin Cities, St. Paul, and really, in some ways, lobby for funds for White Lakes as part of the project. So there would be direct beneficial funds that in the future, if they're acquired through the lobbying, that would go towards actually decreasing your buy-in costs. So like that's the benefit of now with like showing some formality here is that now they can say yes. Like they can talk to the representatives, they can talk to legislators and see if they can get this incorporated now in the next few years. Based on the schedule that has been laid out, obviously as discussions have had, depending on when the decision is made to fully join the East Range Water Board or not. If there was a decision by June, like we talked in the past, that would allow for a timeline of roughly a year of design. Or any sort of improvements between making the transmission line to where as Councilor Garland was kind of saying is, you're looking at a 5-year timeline between funding cycles to get fully funded, design and engineering. So this just keeps moving things along if that's a direction that you also would like to go, so. And as we are sitting in our meetings, we are honing in on some of those questions that were presented. Becky had a list of questions from the council, and those are gonna be addressed in the next 4 or 5 meetings as we talk about major topics over the next 3 to 4 months.
I know with my experience working with the joint powers board for the last 11 years or so, yeah, anytime you do a joint project with another city or multiple cities, the funding. You know, the potential to get the funding just increases dramatically because you're serving a whole area, not just your own city, so. I think resolutions like this are important to show that you're committed. To help secure the funding.
Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, this one will benefit us, but benefit the whole water project involved, which is securing some funding for everybody. And then we do have that out if we're not gonna proceed with it at some point in the future. So. Yeah, I'll take a motion or anybody.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Darla, is there anybody that like to second that?
One second.
We have a second from Councilor Sheckman, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.9, Tri-City ambulance agreement for 2026.
The Tri-City,
Yeah, appreciate your guys' time here.
thanks, Jim. The Tri-City Ambulance Board discussed the agreement at their last meeting. The town board did approve the agreement at their board meeting on the 6th of this month.
What is the increase? I see that it highlighted what they'll pay in 26 and 27, but what is that increase from? What was it from?
It's 1,200 this year. So it's $200,000.
Okay.
And the 875 for payment to the city for administrative fees.
From 6 to
From 650.
So Laura, I don't know why you agreed to this already.
The Aurora Council has not yet approved it, but the membership who was there, and
Oh.
then yes, the township board has approved.
Any other questions or comments before taking on them? Alright, none, is there anybody would like, to make a motion to, agree to this update to the agreement?
So.
We have a motion by Councilor Darla, does anybody have about the second to support that?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilor Krantz, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to the final section of the meeting, 11.10, 2025, committee assignments. Talked about it last special council meeting, I believe, just talked about new committee assignments just with, Councilor Matheson. Full opportunity to attend different sorts of meetings, with that resolution, we have, Dave and Jay from each one of water board. Would we add that to this now or later, or
It's on the resolution,
sort of,
but I can add it on there.
none of that is that. So yeah, we talked about it last meeting, is there anything that anybody would like to talk about? Questions? The only thing for the personnel committee, conflict of interest for Councilor Ekman is the fire department.
Yep, she has a spouse who's a supervisor.
So wouldn't the conflict of interest just be with him rather than
No.
the whole fire department? Is that legal counsel, would that be a conflict if her husband was assistant fire chief?
I don't think the assistant fire chief is supervisor.
It's,
The
it's,
assistant ambulance director is not a supervisor, Cody Pat signed it.
that's because Cody has fought to be in the union and indicated that he's not a supervisor. The assistant chief in the job description outlines that he replaces the chief and the chief's.
Usually.
Yes. So we can. All right, so yeah, personal committee, me, conflict of interest, fire department, EMS department. Then Council Matson will be on that. First alternate would be, Councilor Ekman, second, and that would be Council Grams, third alternate. Darrell, and then we'll see administrator and superintendent for the personal. Beyond that, any other questions or changes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to accept the 2025 city media science.
I'll make that motion.
Second from Councilor Graham, second from Councilor Jarvala, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. That concludes our meeting, I'll take a.
I've got
Yes.
two questions. One is the yellow signs from, was it Mirror or something at the T?
Yes, Chief Suter has been in contact with the person, he indicates he's gonna take them down.
Okay, because I asked that question at the East Range PD meeting and never did hear anything back. I mean, as an individual council, I have authority.
Yep.
I just want to find out, because they're putting them on public signs.
Yep.
That's an illegal thing, so.
Yeah, and yep, Chief Suter has been in contact, the person did say he needs a few days to get back over here, but he will get them now.
Yeah, two things are back.
The second thing. Well, we got to take care of.
Oh, perfect. All right, so yeah, I will take a motion for adjournment.
We'll make that motion.
Motion from Councilor Graham, is there a second or support?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilor Ekman, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.